She laughed when I told her not to come back home. But when she returned, the locks were changed, her life was in storage, and I was finally free.
You know what's funny about affairs? It's not the betrayal itself. That's just a cliché. No. What's truly hilarious is the arrogance. The way they use those predictable business trips for their little rendezvous. Thinking they've woven a web so intricate that a simple husband could never untangle it. They lie straight to your face, looking you in the eye with a practiced softness. All while they're calculating the next time they can slip away into someone else's arms. My wife, Sarah, thought I'd always be that guy, the understanding husband, the rock, the man who would turn a blind eye to her special friendship with a coworker because I was too rational, too logical, to ever suspect the woman I loved. But when I told her not to come back home as she headed to New York with him, she just laughed, a short, dismissive sound. She thought I was bluffing. She didn't believe my words then, but she sure believed the new steel locks on our doors and the divorce papers waiting for her in a storage unit. My name is Michael Turner. Until 6 months ago, I thought I had the ideal life. I was a successful software engineer in Boston, a city where logic is currency. I had a beautiful home in the suburbs, a lawn that was always perfectly manicured, and a 7-year marriage to Sarah that I believed was unshakable. We met in the halls of our university, 2 kids with big dreams. Everything felt perfect. Maybe that was the bug in the system. It was too perfect. I've always prided myself on being a rational man. In my world, problems are solved with code, logic, patterns. If A plus B doesn't equal C, you find the error and you fix it. Coding doesn't care about your feelings. It only cares about the truth. But relationships? They're messier. They don't follow a binary script. And I learned the hard way that being rational isn't a shield. Sometimes, it's just a set of rose-colored glasses that makes all the red flags look like just flags. Sarah was a marketing executive at a top-tier firm downtown. She was brilliant, a shark in a power suit, always climbing that corporate ladder. I was her biggest cheerleader. When she started staying late, I told her I was proud of her work ethic. When she started going to team-building retreats, I packed her bag. That's what a supportive husband does, right? You trust. You don't question. Then came David Reynolds. He joined her firm as the new creative director. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, charismatic, a vibe guy who recently went through a messy divorce, the kind of man who walks into a room and sucks all the oxygen out of it. Sarah mentioned him casually at first, just a colleague, but then her eyes started to change. Every time his name came up, a spark would ignite in her gaze. A light that used to be reserved for me. My stomach twisted. A low-level system error I couldn't ignore, but I pushed it down. I refused to be the jealous husband. My best friend Tom saw it before I did. He worked in the same building, different floor. Mike. He told me one afternoon over coffee. I'm not trying to stir the pot, but something's off. I see them, man. Too close. Too often. I brushed him off. I told him he was seeing patterns where none existed. I trusted Sarah completely. I believed our 7 years meant something. But slowly, the routine began to shift. The date nights we used to cherish became work emergencies. She started hitting the gym twice a day, buying lace lingerie she never wore for me. And suddenly, her phone became her most guarded possession. She'd turn it face down the moment I entered the room. She'd take client calls on the balcony in the freezing cold. Hindsight is 20/20. But at the time, I was just a man trying to be understanding. I was paying a steep price for a lesson I hadn't even realized I was enrolled in. And that lesson started on a regular Thursday evening, a night that would eventually burn my entire world to the ground. It was 9 p.m. Thursday. I was sitting in my home office, the blue light of my monitors reflecting off my glasses. I was deep in a major project launch, trying to find a memory leak in a million lines of code. Sarah had texted me 3 hours earlier. Client dinner running late. Don't wait up. Honey? Love you. I'd gotten so used to those texts that I didn't even feel the sting anymore. But then Tom buzzed me. Hey man, I'm at that new burger joint downtown. You need to get out of the house. Come grab a beer. I looked at my cold coffee and my empty house. Why not? Sarah wouldn't be back for hours. I didn't even bother telling her I was leaving. I figured I'd be back before she was. The restaurant was one of those trendy, dimly lit spots. Exposed brick, expensive bourbon, and a loud after-work crowd. I found Tom at the bar. We'd just ordered our first round when I heard it, that laugh. It's a specific sound, musical, high-pitched, and slightly breathless. It was Sarah's laugh. My heart did a slow, heavy roll in my chest. I turned around, expecting to see a table of corporate types in suits, maybe hoping to catch her eye and give her a surprise wave. But Sarah wasn't with a client. She was tucked into a deep, velvet corner booth in the shadows, and she wasn't alone. She was sitting so close to David Reynolds that there wasn't an inch of air between them. Her hand was resting on his forearm, her fingers tracing the fabric of his jacket. The way they were looking at each other, it wasn't business. It wasn't networking. It was the look of two people who were hungry for each other. Tom saw them too. He reached out and gripped my shoulder. "Mike," he whispered, his voice thick with pity. "Don't do anything stupid. Just stay here." I didn't do anything stupid. I didn't storm over. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there, frozen, as the burger I'd ordered turned to ash in my mouth. I watched them for an hour. I watched them share a dessert. I watched David lean in and whisper something in her ear that made her blush a deep, guilty crimson. When they finally stood up to leave, I shrank back into the shadows of the bar. Sarah never even glanced my way. She was too busy being absorbed by him. As they walked toward the exit, David's hand slid down and rested on the small of her back. It was a casual, possessive touch, a touch that said, "This is mine." It felt like a physical punch to my gut. I made it home before she did. I sat in the dark living room, the silence of the house feeling like a heavy shroud. At 11 p.m., the front door clicked open. Sarah walked in, humming a little tune, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She dropped her keys in the bowl, the same bowl we'd bought on our honeymoon in Italy. "Hey, honey," she said, startled when she saw me sitting there. "You're still up?" "Sorry I'm so late. The client meeting was a nightmare. They kept looping back to the same 3 points. I'm exhausted." I looked at her, really looked at her. Her cheeks were flushed from the wine. Her eyes were bright with the adrenaline of a secret life. She stood there, 7 years of marriage behind her, and lied to my face without missing a single beat. She looked happy. She looked more alive than I'd seen her in months. "How was the food?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly neutral. She launched into a 5-minute fabrication about steak, red wine, and marketing strategies. The lies flowed like water. Each word was a nail in the coffin of Michael, the understanding husband. That night, I didn't confront her. I went to bed and laid perfectly still, listening to her breathe. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand the truth. But the engineer in me, the logical, strategic part, knew better. I didn't just want a confession. I wanted the truth. I needed data, because if she could lie about a burger, she could lie about everything. The next morning, the understanding husband was gone. In his place was a man who viewed his marriage as a failing system that needed to be audited. Being a software engineer has taught me one absolute truth. Data doesn't lie. Humans do. People manipulate. They gaslight. They forget. But the numbers are honest. I created a spreadsheet. I know, it sounds cold. It sounds clinical. But it was the only way I could stay sane while my heart was being ripped out of my chest. I started logging everything. Every late night, every client lunch, every emergency weekend session. I noted the timestamps of her texts versus when she actually pulled into the driveway. I began cross-referencing her stories with the weather, traffic reports, and the office schedule. Tom was quietly feeding me. The patterns emerged almost instantly. It was a masterpiece of deception. A week later, Sarah left her laptop open while she was in the shower. I'd never snooped in my life. I believed in the sanctity of privacy, but that belief had died in a corner booth at a burger bar. I walked over to her desk, my heart hammering against my ribs. There it was, a file on her desktop, disguised with a boring name. Q4_marketing_budget_RE. I clicked it. It wasn't a budget. It was her personal calendar, meticulously color-coded. Red for actual work meetings, blue for gym, and green. Green was for doctor's appointments. I compared the green entries to my spreadsheet. They matched perfectly with every single time she told me she was working late. My stomach lurched as I scrolled to the following weekend. A 3-day block, all in green. The note simply said, BC, a weekend retreat. The shower was still running. I took my phone out and snapped photos of every single page. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone, but I forced myself to be precise. I closed the file, wiped the history, and stepped back just as the water stopped. When Sarah walked out, wrapped in a towel and humming, she gave me a sweet, distracting smile. Big day today? I asked, my voice a hollow shell. Oh, you know the usual, she said, drying her hair. I might be late tonight, though. We have that client presentation to prepare for. Don't wait up. I checked my photos 10 minutes later. Today was marked in green. I called Tom during my lunch break. Tom, I need a favor. Watch the front door of the building at 6 p.m. At 6:10 p.m., my phone buzzed with a photo. It was Sarah and David walking to his car. She had an overnight bag in her hand, the same bag she told me was full of marketing samples. David was laughing, leaning down to kiss her cheek before opening the car door for her. That evening, I sat in my office staring at my spreadsheet. 14 entries, 14 betrayals. 14 times I had been the understanding husband while she was being David's plaything. Then, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Still at the office. Order pizza. Don't wait for me. Love you. That heart emoji. It felt like a serrated blade across my throat. I didn't cry. I didn't break things. I just opened a new tab on my browser and typed, Best divorce lawyers in Boston. The logical part of me had taken over. The data was clear. The system was terminal. Now, it was just a matter of how I wanted to shut it down. Everyone has a breaking point. Mine came 3 days before her New York conference. We were having dinner. A rare night she decided to play house to keep up appearances. She was sitting across from me, picking at a salad, acting like the perfect, stressed-out executive. By the way, she said, her tone light and airy, I've got this amazing opportunity next weekend. The company is sending a small team to New York for a marketing summit. David thinks it could be huge for our department's growth. The words David thinks hit me like a physical weight. I watched her spin the lie. She looked so confident, so sure that I would just nod and say, That's great. Honey, do you need me to drive you to the airport? I put my fork down. The silence in the room became deafening. Cut the crap. Sarah, I said. Her head snapped up. Her fork clattered against her plate. I had never spoken to her in that tone. Cold, sharp, and utterly devoid of affection. Excuse me? She stammered, her eyes widening. I know about you and David, I said, my voice steady, like I was reading a status report. I know there is no conference. I know about the doctor appointments. I know about the burger place. I know everything. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. But Sarah was a professional. She recovered in seconds. She tried the offense is the best defense strategy. What are you talking about? Of course there's a conference. Michael, are you spying on me? This is insane. You're being paranoid. I pulled out my phone and laid it on the table. I swiped through the photos of her secret calendar. Green for doctor. Sarah? Really? You couldn't even come up with a better code than that? Tell me, does the firm knows they're paying for your romantic getaway to the city? She sat there, her mouth opening and closing, for the first time in 7 years. The woman with an answer for everything was speechless. Then, the waterworks started. On cue, the I'm so confused and hurt tears. It's not what you think, she started. Save it, I cut her off. I'm not interested in the script you've rehearsed. Here is the reality. If you get on that plane to New York with him, don't bother coming back. I mean it. Sarah, this is your one and only warning. You choose. Him and a weekend in New York, or this marriage. She wiped her eyes, her expression shifting from fake sorrow to cold defiance. You're being ridiculous. You're making mountains out of molehills. David is a colleague. If I don't go, it'll ruin my career prospects. You can't hold me hostage like this. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the sound of a man who had finally seen behind the curtain. Hostage? No. Sarah, I'm giving you a choice. Go to New York, play house with David. But just remember, if you go, we are done. No second chances. No explanations. No, we can work on this. Done. I stood up, leaving my dinner untouched. I walked into my office and locked the door. I heard her crying in the kitchen. Then I heard her on the phone, her voice a frantic whisper. She thought she could manipulate her way out of this. She thought she could have both. She was about to find out that when a logical man finally reaches his limit, there is no going back. The ball was in her court, and she was arrogant enough to think I was bluffing. The next few days were a masterclass. Psychological warfare. Sarah spent them acting like the perfect wife. She made my favorite breakfast. She asked about my projects with a fake, wide-eyed interest that made my skin crawl. She even suggested we watch a sci-fi series I'd been wanting to see for months. It was all a performance, a desperate attempt to soften me up before she made her move. Tom kept me updated. She's still going. He texted me on Wednesday. I overheard her and David talking about the hotel. They're staying at the Addition. Fancy. I didn't let my face change. I just stayed frosty. I had a plan, and it was moving forward with the precision of a well-written algorithm. Thursday night. Sarah came into my office. She looked like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. She perched on the edge of my desk, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away before she could touch me. About New York, she started, her voice soft. I've been thinking about what you said. I know you're worried. Michael, but this is really important for my career. David arranged meetings with some major international clients. If I don't show up, I look unprofessional. It's just 48 hours. When I get back, we can go to therapy. We can fix whatever this is. I looked up from my laptop. Just say what you mean, bruh. You're choosing to go. She straightened her back, the sweet act evaporating. Yes, I'm going. You're being unreasonable, and I won't let your unfounded jealousy hold my career back. This is a legitimate business trip, and if you can't trust me, that's your problem, not mine. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just nodded. Okay. She stood there for a moment, clearly expecting a fight. When I didn't give her one, she huffed and walked out. She thought she'd won. She thought I'd cave like I always did. Friday morning, I watched her pack. She folded her clothes with meticulous care. I saw her pack a set of black silk lingerie, the kind she hadn't worn from me in years. Really appropriate for a marketing summit, I thought. But I didn't say a word. I'll see you Sunday night, she said, wheeling her suitcase to the door. She paused, looking back, waiting for me to break. Try not to worry so much. Everything is fine. I didn't answer. I just watched her from the window as she got into a taxi. As soon as that car turned the corner, I picked up my phone. I made 3 calls. The first was to a locksmith I'd put on retainer 2 days prior. She's gone. Come now. The second was to a high-end moving company. I need a 4-man crew and a truck. Everything in the master bedroom that isn't mine needs to be packed and moved to the storage unit I rented. The third was to my lawyer. She left. File the papers. Grounds. Adultery. Use the spreadsheet and the photos I sent. By Saturday morning, the house was a hive of activity. The locksmith was replacing every single exterior lock, the garage door codes, and the security system. Full reset? He asked. Delete every existing user. I told him, only I have access. The movers were efficient. They packed her shoes, including those $1,200 heels she bought for client meetings, her clothes, her vanity, her jewelry. I didn't leave a single scrap of her behind. Every memory, every photo of us, every gift I'd ever given her was boxed up and labeled. Tom came over to help, bringing coffee and a grim smile. "You're really doing it, Mike. You're actually doing it." She made her choice. "Tom," I said, watching them haul a box of her favorite perfumes out the door. I told her what would happen. She just didn't believe I had the spine to do it. By Saturday evening, the house was half empty. It looked like a crime scene, or maybe a sanctuary, for the first time in months. I could breathe. I spent the night setting up my new home office in what used to be her yoga room. I felt a strange, cold peace. She was in New York, probably in David's arms at that very moment, thinking she'd outsmarted me. Little did she know, she didn't have a home to come back to. Sunday arrived. I spent the morning at the storage facility. 247. I watched the manager secure the door. "Climate controlled," he said. "The key will be at the front desk for Mrs. Turner." I drove home, sat in my quiet living room, and opened my laptop. I pulled up the security camera feed for the front porch. Then, I wrote the email. Short, logical, brutal. "Sarah, your things are at Storage Plus, Unit 247. The key is at the front desk. Your access to this house has been revoked. All further communication will go through my attorney. Do not attempt to contact me." I didn't hit send. Not yet. I waited for the notification. At 2:14 p.m., my phone pinged. Motion detected at the front door. I opened the app. There she was. She was early. Probably thought she'd surprise me and make up before I could get angry again. She looked radiant, wearing a new coat I'd never seen. She reached for her key and slid it into the lock. It didn't turn. She frowned, pulled it out, and tried again. She jiggled it. She leaned her shoulder against the door. Then, she tried the keypad. I'd changed the code to the date I found her at the burger bar. Access denied. I watched her face through the high-def camera. The confusion shifted into a flicker of panic. She pulled out her phone. My phone started buzzing in my hand. I hit send on the email. Then, I answered the call. "Michael?" she said, her voice frantic. "The door won't open. I think something is wrong with the lock. Are you home? Can you let me in? You don't live here anymore." "Sarah," I said. My voice was so steady it surprised even me. There was a long, agonizing pause. Through the camera, I saw her freeze. "What?" "Michael, stop it. This isn't funny. I just got back from a long trip. I'm exhausted. Open the door. Check your email. Sarah, your life is in Unit 247 at the storage facility on 4th Street. The locksmith just finished. The house is secure. Your name has been removed from the security system." She started screaming then, not crying. Screaming. "You can't do this. This is my house. I have rights. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," I said. "Call them. My lawyer is already on standby with the deed, which is in my name, since I bought this place before we married, and the evidence of your business trip. I told you what would happen if you went to New York. You chose to go. Now you get to live with the consequences." "Nothing happened in New York," she sobbed, dropping to her knees on the porch. "It was just meetings. Michael, please, don't do this to us." "I watched you and David at the burger bar, Sarah. I saw the calendar. I saw the overnight bag. Don't insult my intelligence one last time. It's over." I hung up. I watched her through the camera for another 20 minutes. She pounded on the door. She sat on the steps and cried. She called me 30 more times. I didn't pick up. Finally, a car pulled up. It wasn't David. It was one of her girlfriends. Sarah got into the car, her face a mask of ruined mascara and shattered arrogance. As the car pulled away, I felt something shift. The weight of 7 years of understanding finally fell off my shoulders. I was free. If you think changing the locks was the end of it, you don't know Sarah. A woman like that doesn't just go away. She spent the next week launching a full-scale campaign of manipulation. The emails were first, dozens of them, long, rambling manifestos about how she'd made a terrible mistake, how David meant nothing, how she was confused by the pressure of her job. She promised to quit, to move, to go to therapy every day. I read them all, with the same detached curiosity I'd used to read a bug report. Then came the flying monkeys. Our mutual friend started calling. Mike, you're being too harsh. Jim from the tennis club said, everyone slips up. You should at least talk to her. Did she tell you she's been sleeping with her boss for months? Jim? I asked. The silence on the other end was my answer. But karma wasn't finished with Sarah. It never is. On Friday, Tom called me. He sounded like he was about to burst. Mike, grab the popcorn. It just hit the fan. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who noticed the patterns. The firm's HR department had been conducting a quiet audit of David Reynolds' creative department. Someone, I still don't know who, but I suspect a disgruntled junior designer, had reported the inappropriate relationship and some very creative expense reports. David had been using company funds to pay for their client dinners and retreats, including the New York trip. David was fired on the spot, escorted out by security with his belongings in a cardboard box. Sarah was placed on immediate administrative leave, pending a full investigation into her involvement in the misappropriation of funds. The news hit our social circle like a bomb. Suddenly, the friends who were calling me harsh went silent. The marketing star was now a corporate pariah. Sarah tried to call me one last time that weekend. I actually picked up. I wanted to hear the sound of a woman who had lost everything. Michael, she whispered, her voice sounding hollow and broken. David is gone. He's blaming me for everything. He told HR it was my idea to use the company card for the hotels. I'm going to lose my career. Please, I have nowhere else to go. My parents won't even talk to me. It's funny. Sarah, I said, you spent so much time worrying about your career that you forgot to worry about your character. You chose David over me. Now David has chosen himself over you. It's a perfect logical loop, don't you think? I love you. She sobbed. No. You loved the life I provided, while you chased thrills on the side. There's a difference. I hung up and blocked her number for good. A week later, her father reached out. He was a man of integrity, someone I'd always respected. We met for coffee in a small shop far from our old neighborhood. I want to apologize. Michael, he said, looking 10 years older than the last time I saw him. We didn't know. Sarah, she's always been driven by this need for validation. Her mother was the same way. It cost us our first marriage. I'm sorry she brought that poison into your home. That conversation did more for me than any therapist could. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't because I wasn't exciting enough or charismatic like David. It was a pattern, a system failure that had been coded into her long before I ever met her. 6 months later, I was sitting in a judge's chamber in downtown Boston. Sarah looked like a ghost of the woman I'd married. The polished, high-power executive was gone, replaced by someone who looked frayed at the edges. She'd lost her job, her reputation, and her husband. David had moved to another state to try and outrun his reputation, leaving her to deal with the legal fallout alone. The divorce was finalized in less than 20 minutes. I didn't ask for alimony, even though I could have. I just wanted my life back. As we walked out of the courthouse, Tom was waiting for me with a coffee and a grin. How does it feel? Lead developer? That was the other thing. While Sarah's life was imploding, mine was skyrocketing. All those nights I spent coding to distract myself from the pain, they'd led to a massive breakthrough. A tech startup in the innovation district had seen my work and offered me a position as their lead developer. Better pay, equity, and a team that actually valued integrity. I feel lighter. Tom, I said, I feel like I've finally cleared the cash. I sold the house in the suburbs. Too many ghosts in the walls. I bought a modern, glass-walled loft downtown, overlooking the harbor. It was sleek, minimalist, and mine. The realtor who helped me find it was named Jessica. She was sharp, funny, and most importantly, honest. We started getting coffee, then dinner. There were no work emergencies, no hidden phone screens, just two people being real with each other. One evening, Jessica found an old photo of Sarah and me tucked into a box of documents. I was beaming at the camera, looking so young and naive. Do you miss it? She asked softly. I looked at the photo. Then I looked at the shredder in the corner of my new office. I don't miss the lie, I said. I slid the photo into the machine and watched it turn into confetti. Sarah still tries to send messages through mutual acquaintances. She's working at a small firm now, living in a cramped apartment, going to discovery meetings for her legal case. I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for. But it won't be from me. People ask me if I'm bitter. I tell them no. Sarah taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Never prioritize being understanding over being respected. Never ignore your gut just to keep the peace. And most importantly, never let someone else's choices define your worth. Sometimes, you have to burn the whole system down to find the bug. And once you find it, you delete it. You move on, and you build something better. I'm Michael Turner, and for the first time in my life, the data is perfect. Everything is exactly as it should be. The red flags are gone, and the view from my new loft has never been clearer.